Who are we, the 40 million people that call California home? Who is coming to and leaving from California? And what role does immigration play in the state's population growth? We'll ask Judy Lin with CALmatters.
BNSF Railway, moving our economy for 160 years. BNSF, the engine that connects us. Additional funding for the Maddy Report made possible by a grant from The Wonderful Company, harvesting health and happiness around the world. From the California Channel at the State Capitol and the Maddy Institute, it's the Maddy Report with Executive Director of the Maddy Institute, Mark Keppler.
Welcome. Our guest has stated that her motto is, quote, accounting for California one tax dollar at a time. She is Judy Lin, a reporter with CalMatters, and covers state finances, the workforce, and economic issues for that organization. She brings a decade of government reporting experience to the table with Associated Press, Sacramento Bee, and the Detroit News. Welcome back to the Maddy Report.
Thank you for having me.
So you've commented that, quote, California, it has been written, is America only more so, unquote. How much more so?
We are very much reflective of California, of America, and where America is heading in terms of our makeup, the immigrants coming in, the birth rate, the people leaving. All of this is really a microcosm of America.
And the aging of the population. I mean, all the demographics that you see happening in California are going to be happening in the rest of the nation. We're just kind of on the cutting edge, it sounds like, of those things. Also very racially mixed in California. You're seeing more of that, two-race families kind of thing. So how many Californians are there? How many of us exist out there?
Officially, we're at 39.9 million, but at any moment in the next coming months,
I'm going to round it up. We're 40 million.
We're 40 million, and that's 1 in 8 Americans. That is a staggering figure.
You think about that. By the way, 2 senators, we're not going to get into that, but looking at your report, just to put it in context, that's the same size as the 21 of the smallest states plus the District of Columbia. 21 states.
Yes.
Plus the District of Columbia, and that's California. That's amazing. And just, people point to Texas as being another large state, but Texas has 10 million fewer people than California. They've got 29 or so million people. So California really is that big.
We are. Even if Texas continued to grow at its current rate, it would take almost 20 years for them to catch up to us.
And that's assuming California doesn't grow at all. Of course, we're going to grow, so they're never going to catch us. We've already established it. So how big is California's economy?
We are a $2.9 trillion economy.
With a T.
Yes.
That's a big economy.
We are bigger than the United Kingdom. We're the 5th, as a state alone, we're the size of a nation in terms of our economy. And so
an economic behemoth. I mean, this is a big, because you think about the tech sector, entertainment, don't forget the agricultural sector, very important for the nation and the world. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. We supply half of America's fruits, vegetables, and nuts. It's the amount of crops that come out of the Central Valley. It's very
It's amazing
impressive.
when you do drive through the Central Valley, seeing rows and rows and rows of orchards. It's unbelievable. There's also the housing crisis in California. That's led to some poverty issues, and a lot of people don't realize that California has a pretty big poverty issue, and then a widening wealth gap. So that's another issue tied into the economy. So where do we come from? I mean, a century ago, people come in from the Midwest, I suppose. Where are they coming from now?
Yeah. So in a century ago, we were talking about people from Illinois, Missouri, Ohio. You could see that changing. That migration of the Midwest into the West.
A lot of people, Oklahoma, it came here during the Depression.
And today, it's a much different makeup. It's Mexico, China, Taiwan, the Philippines. We now have about 11 million people are from other countries. They're here in California. 11
out of 40 million-ish, a quarter of us are from somewhere else.
Yes.
Wow, that's huge, and much different than what was happening in migration patterns in the 20s, let's say, 1920s.
Absolutely. I think it's about fourfold that we've quadrupled the migration.
Our migration compared to 1920, so a really big change.
Yes.
And I was reading a report, they were saying that 56% of Californians were born in the States. That means 44% were not born in the state. A lot of people like me who moved to California because it's the Golden State, and a huge proportion, I think reading your statistics, of foreign-born residents, 28%, and nearly double of that transplants from other states, which is nearly double the number of transplants from other states, 16%. So we're getting a lot of foreign-born residents that are moving in, not as many from other states as that's been in the past.
Exactly.
Okay, so who is a Californian? We're going to have that conversation in a moment. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back. We're talking with Judy Lin, a reporter with CalMatters, who recently wrote an extensive report entitled California Migration, the Story of 40 Million. So, is California gaining or losing people?
It depends on how you look at it. Yes, we are losing residents in two ways as people leave the state, natural migration for jobs and other factors, housing costs, things of that sort. And the population is aging. We do have baby boomers who are in retirement and they are part of this swell that's going to be moving on. And on the other hand, some of that loss is being offset by foreign immigrants coming in, and just the natural birth rate.
New births.
New births.
Yeah. And I think in your report it says California added 186,807 to be precise residents in 2018. So you've got more, but you do note that there are more Californians leaving for other states, and that's been going on for a while. But last year's growth rate it's still growing. We're growing at 0.47%, so about 0.5%. So we're growing, but not quite as quickly as we have in the past.
Yeah.
So if not coming to or staying in California, where are they going?
Yeah. Largely, they're going to surrounding neighboring states. And as a native Californian, I hate to say it, they're going to Texas. There's a lot of people moving to Texas, and for different appeals, cost of living probably being a big factor. And so
I think a lot of people in Oregon or Washington too, when they see Californians, because we're used to very high home prices, and the prices in those areas don't really affect us. We're not affected by it, and they can tell you, right, I've been in those areas, and they say, oh, you must be from California because this home price doesn't shock you.
Yes.
So that's happening. And you were saying in your report that greater than 7 million people born in California call other states home. So they're born in California, but 7 million now are living elsewhere.
Yeah, within the state, people who grew up here, born here, they are seeking greener pastures in Arizona, Nevada, Oregon, Washington. They're heading off to Texas because they're for various reasons.
I mean, some of it could be family reasons. I mean, frankly, I had a neighbor who moved his family, his children are in Texas, so he moved and wanted to be close to his family. And that's I think pretty common.
Yeah.
So who's coming to California, and why do you think they're coming here?
So this was very interesting. The great folks at the Public Policy Institute of California found that it's college graduates are coming here at a higher rate than any other. It doesn't happen in any other state. Over the last 5 years, they found that we gained 162,000 more college graduates than losing. Other states just lose.
So highly educated are like in California, and they're moving here. Now we are losing some other folks who are not as highly educated because probably housing costs are so high. But college graduates are seeing opportunities in the Silicon Valley and other economic engines in the state, and then they're being attracted to that.
Very much so, and that's reflective of this widening wealth gap that we're seeing. It's part of.
Right. So who's leaving California then? Why are they leaving?
So what we found, we looked at the IRS's migration data, which was I found fascinating. They were able to break it down that the people who reported leaving tended to be under 35 and make less than $50,000 a year. So these are your working class, middle income type people who are just
a little bit above the poverty line. And there's the poverty line is defined in California. This PPIC has a more sophisticated poverty index, and they talk about for a family of four, poverty is $32,000. So $50,000 is a little more, not a lot more. And you think about the housing costs, the rent costs along the coast, pretty substantial. And so $50,000, well, it might get you a long way in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's not going to get you so far in San Francisco.
Yes, exactly.
And so people then they feel like they have to move because the rents are so high. So, but what about millionaires? A lot of people say, oh, millionaires are fleeing California because the taxes are too high. You often hear this from pundits. Is that true?
So this was interesting. There was this Charles Varner, a director at the Stanford Center on Poverty and Inequality, literally took that as a
He
question.
focused on that issue.
He focused on this.
Because there were 2 tax increases, one in 2004, another in 2012. And what did he find?
And he found that while yes, after the 2012 Prop 30 tax increase on high-income earners and the sales tax, when that passed, there was a really slight effect on millionaires. He found a 0.04% impact.
Yeah, I think the number in your report says 138 millionaires left out of 312,000.
Yes.
So they're not. It is interesting that higher taxes. You had a few of them, but at 0.04%, that's not a big number. It's kind of surprising.
And so very much his conclusion was like, look, the opportunity to make money here in California still outweighs the tax burden. And obviously, at some point, you go too far.
Right.
But I can't tell if this study suggests that we're right at that point, or if we've gone over or not.
But California is highly dependent on these high wage earners or high earners, high income people, and boy, that could really upset the apple cart if the stock market crashes or something. That's really going to have an effect on the California budget.
Yes.
So can you put all this information on population shifts in context?
Yeah, I would say that overall, we are not the growth machine that we once were, and so we've been so accustomed to throughout for decades.
Right.
We are still growing, thanks in part to natural birth rates and immigrants. But we just have to reorient ourselves to knowing that we're not going to grow as big.
As quickly.
Yeah.
We're going to grow, but not as quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. Up next, we're going to find out even more about who makes up California with the 2020 census. The results will undoubtedly have a significant impact on public policy. That conversation in a moment. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back. I'm Mark Keppler with the Maddy Institute. We're talking with Judy Lin, a reporter for CalMatters, about who makes up California. As mandated by Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, every 10 years we conduct a nationwide count of every person living in the United States. 2020 is that year. So, the national census, why does it matter for California and for Californians?
Oh, it's very much about power and a voice in Congress. We have right now 53 of the 435 seats in the House.
That's a big delegation.
It's a large delegation. We would like to, ideally hold on, if not gain, but all the count will very much dictate whether we perhaps lose a seat.
That's one of the concerns about undocumented people not wanting to show up for the census, because remember that the Constitution talks about every person, whether or not they're a citizen.
Yes.
And so there's a concern that some of these undocumented, for fear of deportation, may not want to respond to the census, and that then is going to affect California's number of House members that we have. And they're talking, we could lose a couple if everybody isn't counted. Yes. It also talks about the distribution of federal funding. That's also tied to population, right?
Very much so. When you are trying to figure out where to spend money on infrastructure or even school funding, things of that nature, all the way down to the local level that impact you, you need to have an accurate head count of who's around so that you can apportion the money appropriately. Right now there's been debate about whether or not we get all
a good
the money.
return on our investment,
Yeah.
right? Oh, we pay more in than we get out. Is that true?
Actually, the latest findings say we're about $1 for dollar. It was like 99 cents for every
a penny. So we're getting a penny less back than what we pay in.
Yeah.
But I think you said in your report that that's true, but the national average is states get back $1.22. So if you look at it from a comparison to other states, yes, we are being shorted, but in terms of the money that we're actually sending to Washington, we're basically getting that amount back.
Right. We still don't want to be a donor state, but in a way we are.
Right. So what's happening with the state's birth rate? It's
fallen to the lowest level in state history. It's very much reflective of different life choices, and it's good. It's good in some ways. I mean, it means that there are more people who are educated, holding off births later in life. At the same time,
fewer teen pregnancies. I mean, all good stuff. But then, what are the public policy implications if the birth rate is lower. We just talked about federal funding being attached to population. That's got to be an issue.
Yeah, if you look at, for example, public schools, if you are a school district and you have declining births, that means fewer students in your classrooms. You're going to have to adjust your ratios and teachers and where you spend your dollars.
And you gave an example which I thought was really interesting on LA County. They're projected to be down almost 20,000 births in the next 2 decades. And you did the math on that.
Yeah.
And the math was it's $17,423 per pupil. You multiply that out, that's $342 million they're going to be short. LA County schools are going to be short if the population doesn't increase.
Right.
And they got to pick up that money someplace else.
Yeah.
Hello, taxpayer. No. I mean, it's got to, right? They're going to have to find that money someplace else.
This is it's one of many reasons that you have heard about school district strikes and strife with labor unions and the teachers unions, and that's because of, this is part of, it's a host of problems, but this is one of the reasons when school districts and the financial people are looking at the numbers of how much is coming in. It's not what it used to be.
Yeah, it's simply budget pressures, and yeah, things have changed. So there's also been a lot of talk. You hear about the silver tsunami that's happening in California. All the population is aging, right? These baby boomers, I'm in that group, are aging. Many of them are staying, in California. But what's happening with the aging population in California? What's it look like?
Yeah. So from the state projections, they're saying by 2030, more than 9 million Californians will be over 65. That's 3 million more than there are today.
That's about a quarter of the population. That's a large, a large proportion. So they're going to have to change things. I mean, from a public policy standpoint, that means things are going to have to change. How, from a public policy perspective, what kinds of issues are going to be coming up?
Yeah, I mean, that talks, it's about how to care for seniors in retirement in terms of nursing homes,
senior facilities,
or in-home assistance. And basically, as a state, we have not done a good job planning for it. Governor Newsom has called for a master plan on aging.
Which makes sense, kind of strategic plan to kind of how are we going to deal with this upcoming tsunami.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is you talk about like transportation issues. A lot of people, my parents, when they're alive, as they get older, difficult to drive. That, if California is all about the car culture, how do senior people then get the food or the medicine they need? Now it's changed because there's delivery services, but that becomes an issue, right, from a public policy standpoint. How you design communities.
Yes,
it gets to the granular level.
Exactly, and it's a big question for state policymakers.
Okay, well, up next we're going to talk about another issue that's pretty big for policymakers, and that is immigration, both documented and undocumented. What impact is it having on California? That conversation in a moment. This is the Maddy Report. Welcome back. I'm Mark Keppler with the Maddy Institute. Immigration, both legal and illegal, has changed the face of California. What are the implications for California's future? We're talking with Judy Lin, a reporter for CALmatters, who recently took an in-depth look at California migration. So, legal immigration, how does it compare with illegal immigration?
Yeah, well, as a whole, most immigrants in California are legal. Either they're citizens or they have visas or green card status.
I was very interested looking at your statistics. I think it would surprise a lot of people. So when you look at the numbers, 52% of immigrants are actually naturalized U.S. citizens, so over half. Another 34%, a third, have legal status, so things like green cards and visas. And then when you look at immigrants that are undocumented, that's only 14% of immigrants. So the vast majority of immigrants in California, over 80%, 85% are legally here. So that's an important thing to remember, I think, when people are looking at this issue. So where are these immigrants coming from?
Yeah, largely Latin America and Asia. The leading countries of origin, it's Mexico with about 4 million, China with about 1 million.
So 4 times as much. So Mexico really does lead the pack here. Okay, so China with about 1 million. And then what's another big one?
The Philippines with about 850,000.
So very close as well.
Vietnam with another half a million. India with another 500,000. Yeah,
so quite large. It was also interesting to read in your report that among recent immigrants, Asia has surpassed Latin America. So the immigrants are not coming the majority are not coming from the Mexican border, they're coming from Asia, which is kind of interesting. So how do Californians generally feel about immigrants?
Yeah, we are a blue state, and there is general support.
That doesn't mean unhappy. That means politically, we're more Democratic.
Exactly. I should clarify that. Yes, politically blue state, and so that means that a majority of Californians view immigrants as a good positive, as in they view them as hard workers and have a contribution to the economy. That if you break it down a little bit more, there is less support among Republicans. But it's still a majority.
Still a majority, yeah. And I think you were citing in your report, the PPIC, again, the Public Policy Institute of California, they do polling on a regular basis. They found that 75% of Californians believe that immigrants are a benefit to the state. Only 23% see immigrants as a burden. Yeah. So it does kind of speak to the fact that, and frankly, most of us know immigrants, right, in our daily lives, and so you see.
You're talking to one.
There you go. Contributions to society. And my in-laws. Same thing. I'm sure many people have that story,
Yes.
and so they see the positive, the contributions that they're bringing to the state. So, what are the public policy implications of allowing undocumented immigrants to stay in California?
That is one of those debates that is always politically intense.
Right.
I think a lot of people should know that because of the number of people who are here legally, they do qualify for benefits, if health care, and
But that's always, healthcare is always an interesting issue, because the reality is, even if you're undocumented, if you have a health issue and you show up in an emergency room, they have to treat you. And so I think one of the question would seem to be, how is the best way to deal with this problem? If you're going to have to treat them anyway, would it make more sense? Is it more cost effective to make sure they have health insurance so they buy blood pressure medication, so they don't have a heart attack? Blood pressure medication, very inexpensive. Heart attack, very expensive. And so since you're going to end up treating these people anyway, how are you going to deal with that problem efficiently and effectively? It would seem to be kind of an important issue.
that's exactly why there have been proposals in the legislature to go ahead and expand Medi-Cal to all people, regardless of age or immigration
Well, the other thing
status.
too to think about too, if an undocumented person gets sick, the bug doesn't say, oh, I'm not going to someone who's documented. That bug or virus is going to go to other people, and so you want a healthy population. You want everyone to be healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think financially, the argument is that it's financially smart.
Right.
By having insurance coverage for that person, the doctor and the hospital all get paid.
Right, that's the other thing, because charity care, I mean, the reality is that if someone goes to the emergency room, they don't have insurance, the hospital pays the cost. Guess who pays the hospital?
Yeah.
The consumer, the people who do have the insurance. And so it's some way or another that bill is going to get paid.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so I think you have to figure out in society how is the best way to kind of spread that cost. Well, let me ask you this, last question. What's California going to look like in the future?
Very diverse. What we noticed is, not only are we already majority minority state, as in, mostly Latino, Black, Asians, but we noticed that multiracial Californians are growing at
So
the
Hispanics
highest rate.
are marrying, Asians, and whites are marrying blacks. It's
That true melting pot.
Literally
Yeah.
a melting pot. And California on the cutting edge on that issue, like it is on many others. I want to thank Judy Lin, a reporter for CalMatters, for joining us. If you want to stay current with local politics and state politics, you can log on to our website at maddyinstitute.com. Thanks for joining us. This is Mark Keppler with the Maddy Institute. The views expressed in the Maddy Report are those of the individuals participating in the program and do not necessarily reflect those of the California Channel or the Maddy Institute. If you'd like to share your thoughts about the points and opinions expressed on the Maddy Report, visit our website at maddyinstitute.org.